My face currently feels like I've been run through by Tom Stewart.
Puts it to the top of the square. Oh, beautiful little fist in there by Dale. Crucial centimetre moments.
He definitely has a bit of the Belcho spirit, as I have a bit of the Belcho spirit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the podcast that was absolutely robbed of an All-Australian selection this year, along with about 30 other players, if you believe the Facebook comments section. I reckon 3 or 4 are absolutely justified. This is The Back Pocket. You are, as always, with Jack, and I am, as always, joined by Alistair.
Hello, I think we got robbed of a Rising Star and possibly a game in the first week of finals, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. We decided to take last week off partially because I was in Adelaide and also because there was no football. So it was okay to take a week off. We didn't miss anything. Round 1 of the women's footy was pretty good. I'd say it was one of the more entertaining rounds of women's footy we've seen. And we had state grade finals, but no AFL, which is what we talk about.
Yeah. So we took the weekend off to literally do nothing.
Literally do nothing. I got back from Adelaide on Friday night and I was completely zonked because I had about 10 hours sleep in the last 3 days. So I'm kind of glad there was no football on to pay attention to.
Although we ended up watching
almost every women's game on the weekend.
Yeah.
All right, we'll roll into it. Who was your one vote for round 24?
My one vote, and I had to Google his first name because I'm stupid. Bailey Scott from the North Melbourne Kangaroo Football Club.
Been a few times this year he was close for me. I did the Champion Data Award again this year like I did last year, and he was in a lot of the categories I was surprised to see, so that was really cool.
I think he's had a really good season. I think it's been underappreciated because obviously Sheasel's the star factor back there right now. And obviously they're sharing possessions. Like 1 week Sheasel might be the getter, 1 week it might be Scott. This week both of them actually had really good games. And they played incredibly well. They killed it. And I thought his game was something really good. And I'll roll through the stats because they'll make you go, oh yeah, that's fair. 33 disposals, 10 marks, 7 intercept possessions, 588 metres gained, 11 pressure acts and 8 rebound 50s. The only thing that let him down and why he gets a 1 is because he had 64% disposal.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
They won by 50 points.
North were quite good. I think it's the best. Obviously, they've had a few wins now this year, but that was the best they've looked. Much like West Coast the week before against the Bulldogs. It was the best job they'd done of kind of, you could see that they had a game plan they were trying to stick to and it worked. And who knows, that's maybe part of actually having Clarko back, who would have been working through that game plan with them pre-season, actually getting to do it with them now. But
I'm not sure about that, and we'll touch on that later in the agenda. But I think that Gold
come
Coast...
near me with the agenda.
Hey. I think the Gold Coast struggle a bit more away from home.
Yes.
They're really good in Darwin because I think the conditions aren't too dissimilar from the Gold Coast. But when they travel down to Melbourne, they really struggle.
That was Tassie as well, I think.
I don't. Oh, was it Tassie?
Yeah, so it makes it
even worse.
My one vote was to Harrison Himmelberg, who I thought was really good this week. It was a toss-up between he and Whitfield for me.
I gave many more votes to Himmelberg.
Oh, okay, sweet.
I gave him 4.
The problem with me was that I can't remember what it was. Anyway,
Carlton were only in first gear.
Yeah, I kind of wrote that. I said it was a toss-up between him and Whitfield, but I went back to what this award is about, and it's defence. It was a must-win game for them, which was dulled a little by it being a dead rubber for Carlton.
Yeah.
They couldn't move on the ladder at all. But he had 24 disposals, 83, 12 rebounds and 9 intercepts. 4 of his 5 marks were intercepts, 8 pressure acts, 8 spoils. I hope Kingsley has changed his mind on what he said pre-season and now is fully in the belief that Himmelberg's a defender.
Just proof. There's a whole season.
He's had a really good year.
And I think that's why I gave him more votes. It was more like I think we've not maybe given him the credit because Sam Taylor's there and it's really hard.
And he spent a lot of time up forward or like half games and that kind of thing. So where was he for you this week?
4 votes for me.
4 votes. All right, fair enough.
I thought he had a really good game. I think Whitfield was good, but he played middle. So no votes there, but I thought Himmelberg was really influential, despite it being a bit of an odd game where it seemed like one side gave up after quarter time.
It was like once the Curnow goals got kicked, Carlton really slowed down.
Genuinely. And
there were a lot of players, Newman I think spent almost the last quarter on the bench as well.
He definitely wasn't playing on Toby Green.
Yeah, so there was a lot of players.
So maybe they were just saving that.
Were on the bench and in low gear. We saw that last 10 minutes where Wiedering, Walsh, Newman, and who was the other one out there that was on? It was like Kemp or someone in there with the big boys.
Yeah, I think it was Kemp.
Yeah, just on the bench. But yeah, they really made sure to keep those stocks fresh for finals. Then why wouldn't you if you've got 5th spot locked up? But yeah, I get that. So your 2, I guess.
My 2 is to James Sicily. Low on the votes this
James
week.
Sicily was my 5 this week.
They lost, and
He
they
was
didn't
very
play
good.
well, but he was incredible. Like, you'll go through the stats. They're really good.
So he was my 5, so I'll run down to there. The big dog back again. 4 less
Assist dog.
games than a lot on this list, but he's just been so consistent. He had 25 at 88, 7 contested disposals, 9 rebounds, 11 intercepts, 12 marks. 3 of those were contested, 5 pressure acts, and a spoil for fun, just to throw that in there. Has had an amazing season, and we kind of talked about how much early in the year that we thought captaincy had helped him, and I really think it has. I think that with such a young team around him...
Especially defence.
Yeah, with such a young team around him, he's kind of realised that he has to be that person. And he was obviously he was almost there last year as well. But I'm super excited for Hawthorn next year. I think they're really exciting to watch.
Yeah, I genuinely think they could push for finals.
I agree. If everything goes right,
If they get a few good players in.
much like Adelaide should have been this year if the Keys had that goal.
Sicily were... don't bring it up. If Sicily
Don't mention the war.
hadn't... They pushed Sicily forward for a portion of that game. And if you look at his heat map, he didn't get a single touch forward because he was there for half a quarter. Hawthorn didn't leave their defensive half, and they obviously went, oh no, this isn't going to work, and put him straight back. So, I don't know. Do you lose points for going forward and not getting a touch?
No.
Or would you lose more points for going forward and kicking a couple of goals?
I don't know. Doing it badly makes you a good defender.
No, he didn't do badly. It
Yeah,
was
I
just
know.
that it never went
Like
there.
if you do one of those take a mark and miss it from 10 metres out as a backman, that's bonus points for sure.
Robbie Fox. Not a mark, though.
My 2 was Jack Sinclair.
Okay.
Who I thought was pretty good in what could have been a much worse loss against Brisbane. He had 30 disposals at 87, 10 rebounds and 5 intercepts, 8 pressure acts and 1 spoil, and won his only contested defensive one-on-one he was involved in for the game.
I thought you were going to say for the season.
Rightly earned his All-Australian spot. And
agree.
will go very close to, if not comfortably, win their best and fairest this year.
I don't know. I think he's got competition.
I do as well. And obviously coaches vote differently as well. So players like Wilkie will do really well.
Speaking of Wilkie, my 3 votes goes to Callum Wilkie.
Yeah, he was a special
for
mention.
playing really well in a game that they should have lost by more.
So much more.
Which is basically what you just said.
Wilkie was very close for me, so I get that.
It's the 95% in Brisbane. Muggy, not really good conditions for good kicking, especially out of the back when they were under pressure. But 95%, 12 intercepts, 4 rebound 50s, 6 spoils. It's not 6 spoils, 6 1%ers. I thought he had a really good game in a game where they should have got flogged.
Yes.
So props to that defensive 50.
A big part of it was Wilkie and Sinclair's game and Brisbane not being able to hit a target inside 50.
Yeah, or by a goal.
Yeah. My 3 was to Harris Andrews, who was really, really good in that same game. Resident brick wall of the AFL, only had the 13 touches, but went at 80%, which was 95% by foot, 3 rebounds, 4 intercepts. Won all 4 of his contested defensive one-on-ones he was involved in that game against Membry. Also had a clearance and a score launch for good measure.
Hey, why not?
And 3 rebounds and 4 intercepts in there too.
Yeah, I couldn't find a vote for him. I thought that their defence wasn't really troubled on the day. And that's not like you can still be good in a day where you smash it, but I don't know. I couldn't find votes
The
for
only
him
thing that
this
stopped
week.
him from getting more votes was that Membry did kick a couple, but none of them were when he was directly on Andrews. So
Membry always pops up for a sneaky goal out
he's
of nowhere.
I miss when he was shit. I loved him when he was
Me
shit.
too.
So straight on
done
to my
my
4.
four, so
Have you
straight
done
to you.
yours? My 4 was to Tom Stewart.
Well, he's my 5. So.
Yeah, okay. He capped off his season with 2 huge games in a row. I think the recency bias may have got him into the All-Australian team.
I'm not too sure because these 2 games wouldn't count.
No, you're right.
His probably 2 best games of the season.
Yeah, he had 29 at 86%. In that first 3 quarters when Geelong were somehow rollicking over the Bulldogs, who had just about a full team, 29 at 86, 6 rebounds, 15 intercepts for the week. Huge. 14 marks. 3 of those were contested and 7 were intercepts. 6 score involvements and 4 score launches, which was the most for a defender of the round. 9 pressure acts, 3 spoils, and 3 out of 3 one-on-ones, which is a pretty awesome game in a dead rubber with a lot of other players rested. He
It looked like no one else was
no
trying.
need to.
Oh, well, Smith had a pretty good game, but
He had no need to try that hard, and he did. I think he and Atkins were the only Geelong players who got votes, and they were very, very good. I think that Geelong would be pretty happy with how that game went, and the Bulldogs would probably be pretty disappointed, I think, in hindsight. So
I think Tom Stewart, ultimately for me, and maybe we'll just touch on this now, ultimately I don't think his spot in the All-Australian team is quite as deserved as a couple of other players in that back line, specifically Harris Andrews.
I was going to say we'll get back to. I've got a little segment I want to do on that, well, not long, but we can touch on it now if you want.
We'll go back to it. I'll just top off my honourable mentions, and the only one I have here is Stephen May, really. that hasn't been covered.
I've got so many honourable mentions this week.
Stephen May had 500 metres gained.
May was in there for me.
That's not what he does.
May, well, you'd be surprised. When I looked at his stats, he's one of the highest defenders metres gained in the comp.
Really?
Takes kickouts. Wiedering, Bowie, Buckley, Blakey, Aaliyah, Borlase.
Aaliyah was good.
And Hoff were my special mentions for the
You
week.
really like that Borlase, don't you?
I do. I think he's good. I think he's good at the little things. Which
I'm worried about his leg speed. He's not going to get faster.
So, looking at that, we've got Sicily wins it.
I think Sicily wins based on that. I was trying to do the maths because I couldn't find a vote for
Andrews gets 3,
Uh,
which puts him... Yeah, Sicily wins it.
yeah.
Because of your no vote for Andrews, which makes
Yeah.
sense. And Taylor not playing and Newman having half the game on the bench stopped them from being able to win.
Yeah.
So, in a huge anticlimax, James Sicily also wins a back-to-back Champion Data Award this year by more than last year.
Of 3 of the 4 awards we've had, they've
James Sicily's
gone
won
to
3 of
James
them.
Sicily.
So I got the top 10 in the Champion Data Award here.
Yeah, give us the
top
stats.
5 or top 7 even are all players that are probably top 10 in our votes. So it's Sicily, Andrews, Wiedering, Moore, Taylor, Stewart, May. 8, 9 and 10 are Luke Ryan, Noah Bolter and Brennan Cox.
I think they would get up there on just their weight of numbers alone, right?
I think so. But yeah, well done James Sicily for basically winning everything this year.
Well, I'm glad he's all Australian. I can say that
the
much.
Champion Data Award, it's probably easier for him to win than our award because that's on averages and not, I'm calling that because I did it, but it's on averages, not numbers.
Yeah,
the only one that's on total numbers is the one-on-one percentage, and you have to have 50 or more for me to put you in there, and then you get your votes 25 down to, I think it's only 6 for that one. No one gets less than that based on your loss percentage.
Yeah, I've seen your spreadsheet and I just go, nah.
Yeah, I tried to do it.
Can I call you Rain Man? Is that allowed these days?
I tried to do it at the airport the other day. My boss was doing his... so he's got a bowls tournament he ran on the weekend because he's the treasurer of a bowls club.
Of course he does.
So he's got all his slips out and he's doing the brackets for the bowls tournament. And I pulled out my spreadsheet to start working on it at the airport. I did one column and went, this is way too hard.
Yeah.
So I've done it since then. But yeah, I know there's probably an easier way to do it, but I just haven't figured it out yet. I added meters gained as a value this year as well.
Interesting.
Because I think we talk about that enough
Could
when we give our votes.
Could you weight meters gained with disposal efficiency?
I could, yeah.
I think that might be worth doing.
Yeah. I think disposal efficiency is tough. And I used it last year and I didn't use it this year.
Okay.
Purely because I think disposal efficiency favours people who take kickouts.
True.
Because they're usually picking off an easy target, which just pushes your numbers up.
Ask Darcy Moore.
So I didn't put that in there. Funny enough, I mentioned my boss when we went to Adelaide. So he's a Sydney fan. So we've gone to Adelaide all week after Key's goal. And anytime someone brought up footy, Scott's like, well, Jack did tell me not to talk about this.
It should have been wearing a beanie or a scarf.
I would have.
He would have got stabbed.
And he's that kind of person. He loves a bit of shit sticking. I mean, we didn't get, again, the most I've seen of Adelaide now is a small shopping centre and the cafe attached to
And
it.
wherever that bowling alley is.
Yeah, that's just in the basement of the hotel we own. So I've been in the property of that hotel.
I would like to say it's your work that owns a hotel. Not us.
Sorry. Yeah, imagine if we owned a hotel and we're doing this podcast and we recorded in this living room instead of in one of the professional conference rooms in that hotel.
Imagine if I wasn't playing bowling instead.
Granted, we do it because we don't want to live in Adelaide. That's the main.
Ugh. Yeah, that's true. So very quickly, congratulations to James Sicily for winning 2 awards. And
I do think he had a better year than last year.
And who was it? Was it Melbourne that won the defensive?
No, I think St Kilda ended up taking out the crown this year. After a obviously very low scoring game against Brisbane, despite Brisbane winning. Whereas, Carlton had a couple of games in a row there where they had a bit more kicked against them. Yep. They were second for a bit.
I think they ended up 4th.
Yeah, I think so. I updated the ladder today to have a look at it. So, yeah, and Ross Lyon was the person we tried our hardest not to name the award after. But then his first year back as coach, he takes it out. So
I was thinking, actually, I don't think I'm allowed to say that on the podcast.
It was quite funny because I when I was looking at it, I saw St Kilda won it. I was like, I tried so hard because I went, who has the best defensive record as a coach? Ross Lyon. Okay. Who has the best defensive record for the period of time? Who was the defensive coach of that West Coast team? Shit, it was Ross Lyon. I guess it's fair that he wins one after me trying so hard not to name it after him.
Maybe you should rename it to the Ross
Lyon Shield. Yeah, maybe. So you kind of went to the All-Australian earlier.
Yeah, I'll jump to All-Australian.
Andrews was robbed. I don't think I've ever seen someone more robbed in the
I hate
Australian.
using the word robbed, but I feel like he was.
It's the only time I've truly seen it.
And I even think, I feel like...
If you just swap him for Stewart...
I know on paper the team would not look quite right with that many tall keys, but you can do that these days. And
Wilkie's only 191, and Sicily is so mobile.
That's right. You slip.
If you've got
Wilkie into
Sicily,
that spot.
Houston, Wilkie, I think you're fine. And look, I do think that Stewart had a good year.
Yeah.
But like, it's nowhere near his standards a good year, and it's definitely not all Australian good year. But he's had All Australians before bias, which they do all the time. We've seen Buddy win them when he shouldn't have. We've seen Danger win them when he shouldn't have.
We've seen Harris Andrews do it.
Yeah, so I think Moore should have been captain. It's so weird that you would choose Green.
I feel like it's a legacy pick, right?
It feels like it, but...
Like, they expect Moore to be there for a couple more years.
Yeah, and Green is, 30 now? 31?
I don't know.
And captain, which still amazes me.
Yeah, there was like 6 captains or something on the side, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, there was a few, especially if you include the people who are, what do you call them?
Yeah, well...
Co-captains.
yeah.
Yeah. I would also swap Houston to Newman, but we know how the All-Australian panel picks. So we already talked about that.
Houston
We picked
gets
our
so
sides.
many
We both said
disposals.
that Houston's getting in ahead of Newman. We kind of saw that coming from way off. So that's fine. I think the only one that really stood out to me is the Andrews and Stewart.
Yeah, I'm glad Larky got in.
Yeah, me too. I was really happy to see him there. I would have loved to have seen him ahead of
Walker
because
on the bench.
Once again, like only one of them picked because once again that's a very, very tall forward line. You have one of them on the bench at all times, or you have all three of them playing at the same time.
I don't know. I guess you play
They don't-
Curnow
I know
as
they
the,
don't
like,
pick it based on-
Jeremy Cameron roaming the ground and
Maybe.
smashing his head around.
I'd like to see. I'd love to see them bring in a post-season All-Australian 22 versus the not picked 22 game
It would be so interesting because
because everyone would cheer for the not picked 22. Like that would just how Australians
I'm not
are.
sure about it. Joe Danaher would be on that team.
You're right. But also it would have so many midfielders in it.
Yeah.
There's so many midfielders. In it.
And I think the defence could hold up because obviously you've got Harris Andrews,
Andrews
and
and
you've got
Taylor.
Wittering and Taylor.
That's a great backline.
That's a great 3.
That's gonna imagine watching Andrews, Taylor, and Wiedering on Curnow,
Intercept
Walker, and
kings.
Larky. Oh,
It would be dope. But then on the other end, you've got Joe Danaher and who? Langford? Did Langford make it?
no, like I don't know actually.
I can't remember. I'm sure
Anyway,
he did. We would have heard our friends raging
But
about that one.
more importantly, Sicily, Wilkie, Sinclair, Moore, Houston, all very deserving winners. And glad they got Blazers. Houston for the first time, Wilkie for the first time.
There was a couple of first timers.
Houston's younger than I thought he was this year. I was looking at it.
Is he like 26?
Yeah, because I feel like he's been letting me down in fantasy forever. That he became a never again for me. And then I saw his age and I went, maybe he was just immature or maybe he was good at football. But then he was very all over the place this
He's
year
all
as
over
well.
the place. Well, quickly, still on the awards night, the only other thing,
Yeah.
Will Ashcroft and Jai Amos. I think they were both really hard done.
I agree. And I saw people before the event when the AFL website people voted on it, all their journalists, and Amos was third. A lot of people were like, how's Amos third? I was like, he's had like the third best key forward rising star year ever. It's almost equal to the year that Hogan obviously won extra game played, but it's almost equal to the year where Hogan's weight of numbers meant that he had to win it.
Yep.
Famously, Sav Rocker also didn't win it with 30 more goals than Hogan. But it's so weird that people just... I think it's because he's from Freo. People just don't care. But he's had a really, really good year, and he's a beautiful kick on goal. He's so good to watch when he's firing. So, yeah.
I do dislike his little walk back and has to set the mark. The player's on the mark.
Yeah.
They're already there. But hey, if you've got a routine, you've got a routine. You can't mess with it.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what I'd like to say on that. Toby Bedford.
Robbed.
Robbed.
They're appealing it.
This is the robbed podcast.
This is the Robbed podcast.
They're appealing it.
They're
Thank
appealing
God.
it. Thank goodness. I'm glad they can.
Um,
Why did they wait? Why did the AFL wait this long? Also, wasn't last week the perfect time to have content?
I think they waited until they could have it covered on AFL 360 to get more eyes on it. I genuinely think that's
not,
what they
not
did.
to distract from the All-Australian Awards night and stuff like that.
But maybe so that they could give air to the women's game.
Yep.
Which I'm all for. For that reason, fine.
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like my thing would be, if you wanted to do the women's game at a better time, you could have started it during the bye rounds and had it finishing now, like the grand final this weekend.
I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed watching the games of AFLW. However, when there are finals on, the same day.
That's exactly what I mean.
That's
so
what takes precedence.
now they're running the bulk of the season. It's only a 10-week season,
Yeah.
so we're getting 4 weeks during finals, which is going to take all the eyes off it again.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I will
sure
go
there'll
from,
only be 2 matches of finals.
but I will go from watching almost every game last weekend to probably only catching 2 or 3 this week.
I'll just probably watch my team.
So
Yeah.
I think that's rough. It's a bit disappointing, but it's still at a better time of year than it has been historically. I just think I would like to see them actually get to play the whole season in winter, because it's now going to start getting hot again when they start playing, and everyone's going to be complaining about things. But
I think, and I know it'll be rough because I'll have to adjust it again, but I think starting it in the mid-season for the men's is the right choice.
I think so. During that, even have an actual 1 week off bye and start it that week.
You can do them as curtain raisers.
Yep, I
And
agree.
then they can play at places like Marvel and Adelaide Oval instead of always being...
But then they'll want to charge for each game, and that becomes tricky. But I agree. Curtain raisers makes more sense for me, especially if you have the same teams playing each other.
Like maybe even make it so if you have a ticket to your Adelaide
you
men's
can go.
home game, you can just rock up for the women's game beforehand.
And then
And I'm sure it would mean
'cause they did
jigging
it-
the
they did it-
season in a
saw-
weird way, but
if they managed to do it, we thought it was going to be more of a drama than it was. If they managed to do it during gather round, where they cleared out a whole stadium and refilled it before the game started, I'm sure you can do it with people who only bought tickets to the women's game.
yeah.
And I think that would be a much better experience. You got
Just put
to
a little detonator on their foot, and if they don't get out of the fucking grounds, they explode.
Sam Newman chases them and
Only
yells
in
about the
Adelaide.
vaccine. The only other one I had was the Alex Rance School of Football.
Yeah, I thought you would talk about that.
R.I.P.
Is that what it was called?
No, I don't know what it was called. It had a silly name. It was basically
Rance's
an
Boys
understaffed TAFE full of footy boys.
Yeah.
Where I wouldn't want to be a teacher.
If I was in year 11,
Oh look, if I could have gone there,
I'm sure you would have had a great time.
would have been great.
I can only
but,
imagine they didn't learn much outside of football.
Well, they didn't.
stuff.
They were doing. It was basically a TAFE, so it was like GCSE subjects instead of actual coursework. So it was basically like dropping out and going to TAFE. Same thing, but it was a football TAFE.
Alex Rance producing
Which in
the
fairness-
next generation of dumb footballers.
Which, in fairness, was kind of how I spent my year 12. Like I got. It wasn't actually even a certificate. I had the 1A, 1DE.
I don't even know if they still use that anymore.
Yeah, who knows? But it's not much different to how I treated that. But that was because I dropped out. I just wanted to keep playing football, so I stayed on part time. All right, what else you got for us? Note taker.
I got a few more things, a few more topics. First of all, I thought we would settle with the predictions for the first week of finals.
Oh hell yeah!
Nice and easy. This will make Zaid happy.
I had these asked of me recently, and when we get to it, I'll give you my humorous reasoning when I was double checked on it. But who are your picks?
Oh, well, I was just going to... Well, I guess I was just
You'll
going to
go
go through
on
it game by game. So Collingwood, Melbourne,
Melbourne for me.
MCG. I'm backing Melbourne mainly based on their defensive system.
On form recently as well for me.
Form and defensive system. May and Weaver are incredible.
Pumping Essendon does much for you. Geelong did that twice this year and finished 13th.
Mason Cox is back.
And that's a Melbourne for me.
That's, yeah. If I can't imagine him doing well in the ruck against Grundy. Not Grundy. Go on.
Can't understand the people who are encouraging them to play Dacos. I wouldn't do it.
No.
I don't think it's worth risking when you. That's why you finish top. That's why you get the extra game.
Yeah, if they lose this, they're going to go up against whoever finished 5th
Likely
or
Carlton.
8th.
Yeah. Or Sydney, who are in good form.
And they can bring Nick Dacos back
Yeah.
in. And it'll be majority Collingwood crowd.
Yep.
I would do it there.
Yep.
Second game, Carlton-Sydney. This one's tough.
I'm picking Carlton just on. Sydney were really disappointing against Melbourne, and Carlton were allowed to be disappointing against GWS.
Yeah.
I think it was a very different to watch those two games. So yeah, just on the last 10 weeks,
Yeah.
Carlton.
I think the big factor here is the weather. It's going to be 8 degrees and hailing.
Which I think would favour Sydney, if anything.
I actually disagree because
yeah, okay.
I was reading on the AFL website, they said Carlton's strength, score from midfield, Carlton's weakness, rebound, turnover.
Yeah, well, I
Sydney's
guess
the other way around. Great at turnover, bad at centre clearance.
Yeah,
And if it's
okay.
raining and wet and it's all clearance game, it does favour Carlton. I still think it's kind of line ball. I think the odds being 150 to 260 is a bit much.
I think it's again on form.
But I'm going my boys, but I'm not confident. St Kilda GWS.
I'm GWS just.
Yeah.
Once again, I think that their last month has been really, really good. They had one slip-up game, but outside of that, they've really been storming home.
I think they can handle St Kilda's pressure, and I think they'll outrun them.
I think their midfield is very good. And I think that we've talked about this already, where it's St Kilda's weakness. I think they'll be able to match that in there. And
Yeah.
I think they have enough around the ground to hold up everywhere else. King's going to be a huge difference for St Kilda. I think he's meant to be back, because obviously he
And I
didn't
mean,
play.
if the weather holds up from Saturday, that might not even be important.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
From Friday, sorry.
But if King's back, then Taylor's back. So I feel like that just balances out
and
again.
Buckley's in really good form. So.
Buckley's in great form. He's had a really good season.
So I am tipping GWS in what isn't an upset. They're favourites in that game.
Yeah, but St Kilda, it's because it's based on betting and people just don't rate St Kilda.
It's not a marvel either.
That's a huge thing. And I said to, I was talking to my dad about it the other day, and I was like, I will spend my whole season talking about how much I hate St Kilda while Ross Lyon is there. But I will defend to the teeth your right to a home final.
Of course you would. But I do too.
And it was interesting on the radio, they were talking about the other day, they said about now is the perfect time to talk about should Geelong get home finals, because they're not playing this year. This is the time to have a rational discussion about it. And almost everyone was like, unless it's a prelim or a grand final, then yes, like they should. I think even a prelim, they should, but it's hard because the crowd number really outweighs it there.
It's just not enough.
But for semi-elimination qualifying, they should get a home final. You earn that by getting the home spot. And I feel like that for St Kilda too. I think you can move a prelim to the MCG, but they should be able to play every other game at Marvel.
I feel like even because they're playing GWS, is this just and I mean, not that it matters much because if GWS lose, they're out. But is it an excuse to give GWS more exposure at the MCG? Is it just...
It's just money.
It's just money?
It's just money.
It's annoying. Last game, Brisbane wins. That's all I'll say.
Brisbane wins. And I was questioned on that because I said I think Melbourne, I said I think Carlton easy, I think GWS just, and I think Brisbane easy. And the person I said that to said, why do you think Brisbane easy? I said, because Brisbane good and Port not so good. That was my entire justification. And the Gabba. Like, Brisbane good, Port not so good. Port and Collingwood, who were, for most of the season, the two form teams, are probably the two least form teams in the finals right now. I think they both have the capacity to turn it around because we've seen their best football this year. But if we're going on the last 2 months of football, they're the two worst teams in the finals.
Yeah, probably.
So it's really hard to...
Even below St Kilda.
Yeah, well, St Kilda's last couple of months has been surprising to everyone. Really good. They had two really close losses to Brisbane, which is because the fixtures are stupid and they played them both in the last 2 months. And then some really impressive performances along the way that people didn't expect, and just dismantled Richmond and Geelong, teams that were pushing for finals when St Kilda played them. So, yeah, no, I'm all for St Kilda being in better form than those two teams. Port have looked shaky, and then Collingwood's wins come against a Geelong that people have been beating up for fun in the last couple of months, and an Essendon team who genuinely people have just been beating up for fun. They're
statistically a bottom three side for the last half of the year.
I think Melbourne and Brisbane are in the box seat. Brisbane especially. If there was ever a year for them to do it, it feels like it's this year. Even more so than the year they had it in Brisbane.
The only problem is, like, doing your magic ladder predictor, the only problem is Melbourne.
Yep.
That's their big worry. If they play anyone else in the grand final, I think they're in for a day out. But Melbourne, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I saw a thing that said since Kohler has gone, no non-Victorian team has beaten a Victorian team in the grand final.
Cost of living allowance.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it is something to be looked at. But the discussion about the grand final being held at the MCG will rage on forever. No, Geelong don't get a Kohler. Really, they should get an anti-Kohler because it's cheaper to live in Geelong than Melbourne. Like...
Yeah,
the rent's
meth's more expensive.
It is,
so.
yeah. The rent's like The rent's like $100 a week less, so like they get a decollar.
All right, moving on from that, Brownlow. Who do you reckon?
Butters.
Oh, I'm going Bont.
I think Butters.
Does Butters loses too many votes to Rosie?
I think Bont loses too many games to losses.
No. Bont's going to get those Patrick Cripps threes and losses.
I hope so. I hope it's Bont because he has been... We talked about this a few weeks ago.
He's been the best player.
He's been the best player in the comp. He's been best player in the comp for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
If he doesn't win it now, it'd be really sad to see him go out as one of those players that's just been one of the greatest players of all time. Pendlebury and Selwood are two great examples.
Yeah.
McLeod is another one that comes to mind. Some of the greats of all time that just didn't get there. And most of the ones that we have in the same echelon as those players have won 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So it would be a shame for a class midfielder to have had such a strong patch of football and not win one.
It'll be wild to see if Bontempelli finishes his career with none when players like Fife got 2.
Fife got 2.
4 getting 3s in losses, like when the side was only doing okay.
So what Bont needs is a weird thing on his arm or something.
He needs some Simpsons tattoos, you reckon?
No, he's like so Fife wore the sleeve that year.
Oh.
Which he joked about so his nan could pick him out on the TV. So Bont needs something like that. What
if we, Bont's the first AFL player to just play full pants?
Full pants?
No shorts, just pants.
I don't think the AFL would like that as an organisation. Because it was a long time ago now. this is bringing up weird footy things I've got in my brain. The AFL got really upset that players were altering their socks. The players didn't like having their socks pulled up, wanted to keep them down, and they were like, it's really annoying to have a long sock around your ankle. So they were cutting them off at the foot and at the top and then just stitching it back on. And the AFL chucked us out about it, and they're like, what difference does it make? Like, you're not enforcing the socks being pulled up. Anyway, I don't think they'd like pants. I think they get really upset if you wore pants. They banned skins in the end, didn't they?
I don't know. I think long skins, yes, but I've definitely seen players...
Yeah, I don't think you can wear black ones, though. You've got to wear the
black.
The flesh-coloured ones.
Yeah. All right, a couple more things. Kiss.
Yep.
My question is, and I'm fine with it, boomers will be happy.
Yeah, but they're already watching.
What?
That's what
Who supports Kiss? There's always bands that play a song or two before them. Who
like
goes
Vance
on
Joy
Kiss?
with the Killers was a phenomenal year.
Yeah, like what's the combo?
I don't know. I feel like
What's
they
Die
need-
Hard is Murder doing?
there's so many levels to it to me. Like I get that they want to have entertainment. I barely, because it's already it's going to be watched anyway. It's the AFL Grand Final. It's the biggest sport in the country. But if you're going to put on a band that people who weren't going to watch the Grand Final already would like to see. People who want to watch Kiss were already going to watch, or just aren't, even though Kiss are on, because they're watching a Kiss cover band at their local pub next Thursday. People who want to watch a up-and-coming Aussie band are more likely to tune in. Like, if you get a band that's going to cost the same amount as Kiss, but it's far more relevant, even if they're not as big as Kiss...
You reckon they got enough money to convince Daniel Johns not to be a dickhead?
Maybe. Like, that would be a big one. Like, Powderfinger was huge when they got Powderfinger back together. I remember Eskimo Joe and The Living End were really good when they came on, because they were while they were still relevant bands.
Yeah, I think...
If you did The Living End or Eskimo Joe now, it'd be the opposite effect.
I wonder if they'll be like, we need to improve our market with middle-aged mums. Let's get Pink in.
Pink, at least Pink would be...
Yeah,
like
dude.
People would watch Pink, right? Robbie was good last year. That was a really good one. And even though like people would put him down as like in the older category, he's still an absolute entertainer.
Yeah.
And still packs out shows
I would
everywhere
let
in the
him
world.
entertain me.
Yeah, well done. He's a jumper trader. That's what he is. Every time he comes to Australia, he wears a different club's jumper. He's got a Brisbane one, a St Kilda one, a Carlton one. He's a jumper trader. Pick a
He's not.
team.
Kiss aren't a jumper trader.
All Carlton.
All Carlton.
Oh, speaking of Kiss and Carlton,
Oh.
not kissing Carlton. A co-worker of mine was talking to me today, and she said the reason she became a Carlton supporter was because of a couple of friends who live in Perth, were the only people she knew in Perth when she came here, and they were both Carlton fans. And her first night out was at what is now the Raffles. It used to have a different name. The one in like on the river near the city. And they saw a Kiss cover band. And she's a massive Carlton nut. And when she saw that Carlton playing finals finally, for like only the second time since she's been following them since she moved to Perth, have Kiss playing at the grand final, she was like, it's an omen. It's an omen, Jack.
Well, you've been getting my very sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek messages all week. So.
Yeah, so Carly, if you're listening, I love it. I love that kind of dumb shit. It's one of my favourite things in football. I love stupid football omens. The Curse of Norm Smith was my favourite for so long. And I love the people that still hang on to it, because they still haven't won a grand final at the MCG.
In the MCG.
I love a curse. The Kennett curse was also great when that was just running for years.
Of course you'd love the Kennett curse.
I mean, it was funny, because Jeff Kennett's a prick.
All right, I'm going to wrap up the show with one last segment.
Hit me. Not physically, I'm sore.
Oh, maybe later. Trade roundabout.
Oh.
Very quick. Where do they end up? What are they worth? Radaglia.
Radaglia goes to Hawthorn for pick 24.
24?
Well, it'll be 26 by the time.
And you reckon Hawthorn?
Yeah.
So
I don't think Port have the capital.
what happens to Granger Barras then?
He goes to Essendon.
What happens to Zirk Thatcher?
He goes to Port Adelaide.
All right, Jade Gresham. Any suitors at all?
No, I think he stays.
You reckon he stays? Yeah. He'll be on very minimal money there.
I don't know if anyone needs a Jade Gresham.
Do you reckon not even a club like North will pick him up to try and...
I think it'd be more likely...
If Mackay leaves, they've got money.
I think it would be more likely that a club who is close picks him up and tries to do it the way that Geelong had Stengel drop into that forward line and become a goal kicker. Maybe a Collingwood would be more likely to do it than anyone else.
They don't need him.
But they don't need it either. They need a key forward,
don't need that player.
not a small forward. So I feel like it's not the right market for a Jade Gresham to be worth money.
No. So quickly, Ben Mackay.
Ben Mackay goes.
Goes.
Has to go.
Essendon, you reckon?
I think it's best for him and the club. in a way.
Do you reckon Sydney might snipe him? Buddy Franklin style?
I hope they do, for his sake.
Rough,
but for both of their sakes, because I was looking at the Champion Data Award last year, and there were so many categories that Paddy McCartan topped or was close to the top 4 for St Kilda, for Sydney, sorry, and he's been a huge loss for them this year. I think it's been underrated because he did so much grunt work. And if you put a Ben Mackay into that side, I think they'd be a lot better team just from that. So St Kilda is where I hope he goes. Sydney, sorry.
Lastly, last trade, ridiculous trade, Grundy. What do you reckon?
He's got to go to Port, doesn't he?
He has to leave.
It's finally destiny fulfilled. It was like 10 years ago everyone was talking about Grundy to Port, and then he signed that huge contract at Collingwood, saw out, half of it, moved to Melbourne, played barely any games, useless up forward. And I say that kindly because he's a great ruck.
Yeah, when he can kick goals.
When Grundy was out,
ruck.
he was good in the ruck. So when Gorm was out. Lysett back to West Coast to finish his career.
I reckon he'll go to Geelong.
Lysett to Geelong?
2 years, got the mo, got the lifestyle. I reckon he'll go there and...
Do the Segler? Played 3 games?
No, I reckon he'll play more than that. I think Stanley will be in and out. I think Conway will be in and out.
I think Conway plays, if he's fit, plays the whole year.
I don't think he's ready for that. His 6 disposals did not say that
His
to me.
his hit-out work and tackling was good, though. I think he knew where to be.
But even Shannon Neal looked good in the ruck, so...
Yeah, but Shannon Neal looked good in the ruck against Darcy Cameron.
It's been pretty good.
Yeah, but it's not Team English, is it?
No.
Yeah, he looked awful in the ruck against Rowan Marshall.
Everyone does.
Except for maybe Team English. All right, yeah, I've got nothing else for this week.
Yeah, I told you, I brought the goods. I got everything.
You bought the goods. Congratulations again, James Sicily and St Kilda, for taking out those respective awards, and James Sicily twice. Don't know if we'll do a finals wrap this year. Maybe we will. See how we go. We didn't last year because
the more weeks that go in between doing the podcast, the less you want to do it.
Absolutely.
That's just
Especially
the truth.
when you want to try and recap the whole final series. It's too hard.
Yeah.
Last year we couldn't do draft week or trade week because I was in New Zealand. This week we might be able to do a draft one. So we'll see how that goes. Greg, the podcast mascot, is having a sleep right now, and I'm very jealous of him.
He looks very comfy. So.
But thank you so much for tuning in again this year. I hope to make some improvements in the off-season to the website and accessibility of this podcast, using the time that I would normally use to record, edit, and upload the podcast each week. So there'll be some silly merch coming out. I'll work on that as well. I think that the stuff that's there is fun, and hopefully a few more eyes can land on it too. And we'll work on that. But until then, thank you so much for tuning in this year, and we will see you after the footy.
Bye.